In the process of making my nails, there are typically a handful of moments when I will get a burst of excitement, and this time around it was during the making of, well, modifying these two chocolate bars to make them look like they're wrapped in gold foil, and the making of a mini cookie that looked like it was bitten into. Like, are we okay? This video is delayed. I created this nail set last summer, and I'd like to think that it was my signature nail set. And after the making of it, I decided that every summer I was going to have a signature nail set. I already have an idea for this year's, but before we get into all that, let's talk about how I was able to achieve the ice cream nail set. So I knew what I wanted, but I was trying to figure out how to bring the idea to life. I knew I wanted ice cream, elements of ice cream, toppings, swirls, candies, melted ice cream, all that jazz. I ended up analyzing some candy charms that I had to help me figure out proper dimensions for the 3D elements I would need to create for my design. And I went straight into a conceptual sketch. In between, I tested out some of the materials I would actually be using in the making of the nails, like the sprinkles, by placing them right on my screen, which kind of helped me think through placement and also how to diversify the design even more between the two hands. Once the design was done, I started to pick out my nails. My approach is to basically pick whatever fits my nail wall to wall comfortably. If I'm ever in between two sizes, although that wasn't the case here, I was able to find tips that fit each nail comfortably. But if I'm ever in a place where I'm in between two nails, I will pick the larger one and then just sand the sides of the larger one to make them fit my nail. Following that, I sanded the undersides of the nails. This is primarily to help the nails adhere when you're doing the glue in the install process, but I do them ahead of that because doing this helps the nails stick to the gummies on the nail stands. Then I buffed the top of the nails to remove any shine, which helps the polish or gel polish that I will be using for the design stick to the nails and prevent chipping. And then I also sanded the sides slightly to make the nails a little bit pointier so they can give that nice elongated and sharp look. I honestly typically don't do a foundation or base layer, but with this design, because I knew I was about to be doing a lot with the 3D elements and layers of multiple colors, I wanted to really strengthen the nails, especially at the tips. I used my foundation gel from Beetles, and this is the part where things really got cranked up. Because once that base coat was done, baby, we went straight into laying down our foundation colors and working on them swirls. I looked at a chocolate ice cream swirl photo just to get an idea of the ways that colors mix in an ice cream swirl so that I can get an idea of just how to motion the paintbrush to create that kind of effect. Not a paintbrush, a nail art brush, but y'all know what I'm talking about. To create the chocolate swirls, I put down the translucent dark brown first, and then without letting that cure, I went in with a thin brush with a lighter brown, doing wavy motions, and then went back in, creating even thinner lines with the white color. I didn't let anything cure so that it could look like the edges of those lines were sort of blending into each other without fully blending. Essentially, I cured only after finishing the design. Per usual, I hopped around in between nails just to keep moving. I put down the white for the nails that were going to have the sprinkles. I also put down the pinkish slash beigeish color for the nail that was going to have the ice cream drips. I do this so I can give some of those bases a little bit of time to dry before I add more elements or other colors on top. And I moved on to work on some of the chocolate mini bars. Now, these were existing charms, but the chocolate bars were initially wrapped in silver foil, and I wanted them to look like they were wrapped in gold foil. So I actually, let me rewind. So the charms, as is, were pink chocolate bars wrapped in silver foil, but I wanted one pink chocolate bar and one brown chocolate bar, like your typical chocolate, and also wanted them to be wrapped in gold foil. So I painted one brown and then painted over the silver portion of it as well. And then for the pink one, I just painted over the silver half. It turned out so cute. Like, I was obsessed. After a few more coats of the white and letting that dry, I started working on my sprinkles. Those dried quickly once I put them back under the UV light, and then I immediately started working on my top coats for those nails. Because of the material I used for the sprinkles, these were going to have a little bit of texture to them, and I didn't want the texture to be too pronounced, and I knew I would need to do a few layers of that top coat, so I just started laying that down. So while I work on the other nails, I can keep adding to the top coat so I could eventually build a thick layer. Wherever I had drips representing either melted ice cream or chocolate syrup that's dripping, I layered those colors so that those drips could look as realistic as possible. So whether it was the white one or the brown one, I went over those colors a few times just to give them a little bit of dimension so they could look thicker. And then I moved on to creating the cones. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that there are moments in the process of creating my nails that I will get bursts of excitement. Well, there are also moments when I am just really scared about what I'm about to do. The way I went about creating these was to essentially create these tiny squares that had to be similar in size and also align symmetrically. And then once that dried, I went over it with a gel color to give it some dimension. But the reason why it was scary going into it is because messing up in this phase could either mean having to go in and clean in between the lines or completely starting over, which could be detrimental. While that dried, I moved on to creating the cookies. I mixed the original brown that came in my Sissy clay kit, which I talked about in my last video, and a little bit of white to create a lighter brown. And then I created tiny divots on the cookies and added tiny darker chocolate circles to represent the chocolate chips, and then I let that cure. From there, I went back and added that gel layer that I talked about earlier on top of the mini squares on the cones, and then I created a very light brown by mixing my lightest brown in a bit of clear gel to go in between those little squares so that the pink in between the squares wouldn't show through and it could look like the cone is actually uniform. From there, the remaining components were the ice cream on top of the ice cream cone. I believe I used the most clay here out of anywhere else in this entire project. And then doing the toppings on top of the ice cream. So sprinkles, a little bit of fruit, a little bit of syrup on top of the cones. I did some chocolate syrup on one of them. And then finishing everything off with a top coat. So let's finish these off. Like I mentioned earlier, I already have ideas for this year's signature summer nail set. I actually have multiple ideas and I'm really excited to execute them, but again, another fun project. This was so cute. Honestly, I feel like I'm creating things that I've imagined that I never actually thought I would create, and because of that, I am both so proud of myself and so grateful for God's grace for bringing me here, because working on these projects bring me so much joy and fill me in so many ways that y'all don't even understand. But thanks for watching.